Welcome to another edition of the Highbury Squad's Lockdown Series. This is episode 5. I have 2 legends. That makes me one lucky girl. Welcome back, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good everything, no matter where you are in this world. Joining me again is Mr. Super Kevin Campbell. He's been with me all week. You've smashed it, KC. Welcome back.
Great to be back, Soph. Great to be back.
And from one legend to another, he is known as the Podfather, and we are always comforted by his dulcet tones. Mr. Andrew Mangan from Arsblog, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Sophie. Hi, Kev. How are you?
Hi, Andrew. I'm good, thank you. Finally, we get on together.
Sure. Looking forward to it.
And I'm not sure if we're going to get on together.
Now, let's see.
We'll see.
I'm going to kind of try and arc this first part of the conversation around sacrifices. We've talked a lot about, and if you haven't seen Andrew's write-ups, columns, post Aston Villa game, you should go to arsblog.com and check those out. He wrote a couple of really good pieces about the state of the union, really, with regards to Arteta, and also very measured thoughts and comments in terms of where we might go next. So I'm going to start this piece of the show with sacrifices. And it just so happens Amanda can't make it today, but she sent in a question. And the first point that I wanted to make, so I'm just going to play it and then we can talk about it. No, Siri, I don't need you right now.
So, hey Kev, hey Andrew, I'm so sorry I couldn't be on the show, but unfortunately I'm working at 4:00 today. So, instead of me being there and asking you this question, Andrew, I thought I'd send a voice note so Sophie can play it for you. Over the last week or so, Sophie, Kev and I have been arguing about this, and I'd like to get your view on it. Kev and I are on the same page with it, but Sophie isn't. So, growing up, football was all about winning trophies. Over the years, during the 90s, I'd say, when Sky came in the Premier League, the top 4 became this new winning mentality thing for the younger viewer. I'm 51, by the way. So I want to take your view on what you think. Kevin and I think that getting second or third and not winning the FA Cup is not a great thing, where Sophie wants that this year. She would take not winning the FA Cup for progress. And I've said to her, and Kev has as well, coming second or third, you win nothing. You're getting the Champions League, but hey-ho. It's all about winning trophies. Well, it is for Kev and I, and for Soph, as I've said, she wants progression more. I'd take an FA Cup every year, but I'd like your view on it. Have a great show, and bye.
All right, Andrew, over to you. But I'd like to add a caveat to that. I did say I'd like to win the Europa League this year because I think that's the most important. Go ahead, mate.
Right. Trophies are amazing. That's what it's about. It's, when you're playing football, it's about winning things, right? It's about winning matches and ultimately winning games, and enough games to either win you a league or win you a trophy. I think there is a balance to be found, though, between... Like, what trophy do you want to? Do you want to win the FA Cup forever? Or do you want to win the Premier League? Do you want to win the league again? Because it's been too long since Arsenal won the league. Do you want to win the Champions League one day? I'd love to see Arsenal do that. I'd love to see Arsenal win the league and win the Champions League. So to make that happen, you need to be in the Champions League. You also need that Champions League revenue. You need to be able to invest in your squad with that revenue. So while I fully accept that winning things is brilliant, I think there are levels to it. And we've got a lot of FA Cups, and I would never turn it down. Like, my first ever Arsenal memory is winning the cup in 1979. And, since then I was smitten with the FA Cup and always have been. I love it. But I think we all want to see Arsenal return to what, I don't know if you can call it the glory days, but, you know what it's like to win a league and to be in teams that are properly competitive. And why did we move to the Emirates? It hasn't worked out in the way that they said in terms of making us compete with the biggest clubs in Europe, but that was the idea. That was the ambition. So I think for Arsenal to really make progress, it would be better for us to finish second or third without a trophy this season and to use that money to invest in the squad, to bring in better players, which gives us a better chance of building a deeper squad to win more trophies. You know, I think you sometimes need to, if not take a step backwards, to take two forwards. You need to build, you need to have a project, and you need to make a plan to do that. So, you know, let me put it this way. If we won the League Cup every year, would everyone be happy? I don't think so. Even if it is a trophy.
I would agree with Andrew there in that most Arsenal fans, KC, if we won the League Cup, which we haven't won since '93, I believe, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not the progression that Arsenal need to make. And when we talk about progression, it's financial as much as it is winning trophies as well. So Andrew's point, I think, is on point. What's your feedback to Andrew? I know how you feel about it, but as a player, you're always about winning trophies, no matter which one it is.
Listen, I understand what you're both saying. 100% I do. But you know the levels that we talk about, even at our best, we never won the Champions League. We got close and we should have won it. But we never won it. And this is the problem. Yeah, it's great to qualify for the Champions League. Of course it is. We all want. We've never ever once said we don't want to qualify for the Champions League. But at the end of the season, supporters want trophies. And there's only 4 trophies to go for. Mm-hmm. Whichever way you look at it, there's only ever 4 trophies. That's the League Cup, FA Cup, a European Cup, and the Premier League. So there's only so many things this squad can actually do. We're not consistent enough in the league to win the league. We understand that. So what we're saying is if the team could finish in the top 4 and we win a trophy, we'll take that. Because then at least, as you said, Andrew, it is about levels and it's monetary levels. It allows us to go out and get better players in to try and be a lot more consistent. But you know what, at the end, as a player, at the end of the season, you want to win something, because when you get back and the new kit comes out and you take that team photo, it's always nice to have a pot in front of you.
But let me ask you this, you know, as somebody who played the game, you know, your own personal ambitions, you know, to be in a team that could win the league and to fight for titles and to be up there with the best. Could you perhaps separate that from, okay, we've won a trophy this season. Could you say, okay, well, if we go without a trophy, but we achieve something in terms of where we finish. Let's say last season you finished 10th and the next season you finish 4th and then you finish 2nd, and you can see this progress and there is greater finances available to bring in better players, and all of a sudden you're surrounded with top talent, and you know now that you're in a team that can really fight for the title. Is that something you can compartmentalize or get your head around, or is it just really I don't mean to say that it's short term, but you know, do you think about that kind of thing when you're playing?
I like the way you're putting this thing, but it always boils down, my friend.
That was a nice pivot, a midfield pivot.
Yeah, listen, I like this guy. I love the way you listen. We could talk around it all we want. At the end of the day, players want to play with better players. That's just fact. You want to play with top players, and you want to have a chance of winning everything. But you know what you won't do? Because at the end of everything, when your career's done, people always going to say, what did you win? Not how many times did you finish in the top 4 or anything like that. Oh, we had a great side and we challenged. No. What did you win? Like as a goal scorer, how many goals did you get? They don't worry about how you played. Oh, I played great in that game. Did you score? No. Don't even speak to me. So, you know, compartmentalizing things, we can talk about it as many ways as we want. But at the end of the day, and this is due to the past of Arsenal as well, the history. Arsenal are a club that win trophies. If you want to go down that route of having a good squad, that's right. Look at that lot down the road. They've had a good squad for how many years and won, was it the Audi Cup? That's what they've won, the Audi Cup. Do you reckon they wouldn't swap an FA Cup with us?
Of course they would, but I think our ambition should be much greater than Tottenham's.
Absolutely.
Andrew, But this is exactly what I'm saying. Our ambition is the success of the team. For me, is about winning.
But it hasn't. It's been financial for a long time. Our ambition hasn't really been to win the Premier League, has it?
Well, if we look over the last 10 years, the club haven't want to be the best it can be, has it? And for how many years have we spoke about getting a dominant centre-half and a dominant central midfielder? And finally, out of the blue, Mikel Arteta, who's a novice, comes in and gets a centre-half and gets a centre midfielder. All those experienced managers before him never done it. So, I understand. Of course we want to be in the Champions League. But, as far as I'm concerned, I want both. I want to be in the Champions League and I want silverware.
I would like to double pivot on this conversation just for a few more minutes, because I actually think, looking back, and this is one of my personal sayings is, I only use the rearview mirror to check my lipstick. But Arsenal have kind of changed that a little bit, because they have me looking in my rearview mirror a lot, Andrew, in the sense that at the time, 2014, I remember being in Cannes, working at the Cannes Film Festival and having the game on and falling to my knees like most Arsenal fans when we finally broke the duck and won another trophy. We repeat in 2015. We do it again in sensational fashion in 2017 when nobody was expecting us to do so. And to be quite frank, forgive the pun, I don't think most people were expecting us to beat Lampard and Chelsea this year in the FA Cup with Mikel Arteta. But would you say, maybe looking back, not on this year's FA Cup yet, but it could happen, those FA Cups, as important as 2014 were, would you sacrifice some of those for the progress? Because do you feel, in essence, they put Band-Aids on the last few years of the Wenger era, which set us back in terms of moving forward in the Premier League?
No, I don't think so. I think that those cup wins were so important because it had been so long since we won a trophy, and we remember the League Cup final against Birmingham when we all thought it was going to be over. We could, get rid of that weight around our neck. I think we could have done both, to be honest. I really do think we could have done both. We won the trophies. We had some young players there when you think about the squad at the time and the age of some of the players like Wilshere, like Ramsey, like Kieran Gibbs. We brought in Mesut Ozil, we brought in Alexis Sanchez the summer after that. So we were able to win trophies and improve the squad. And I think the only thing, when I look back in the rearview mirror, I don't have to worry about my lipstick. I would worry about 2015. That would be the moment for me where I feel like we just didn't push. We didn't push, and we should have. We brought in Ozil, we brought in Sanchez. I know we brought in Petr Cech, who was a very experienced and high-profile player that summer, but it felt to me like we needed to make another one of those signings, one of those statement signings, which would have signaled the continuance of the ambition that we had to build on the trophies that we had. And it's impossible not to look back at that season, given everything that happened with all the teams that fell by the seat of their pants. And credit to Leicester. They were really great that season. They won a lot of games, but I just wonder if we cranked up the pressure with a squad that could properly compete, would they maybe have crumbled a bit, because of the stature. So I don't think it was a case of swapping those wins. I think it was a case of building on them better than we did.
Can I add to that, please, Sophie? I think that's a really good point. And the league was there for the taking, if we're honest. Arsenal beating Leicester at the Emirates with that Welbeck goal. Everybody kind of felt, didn't we, that momentum had changed. But going back to it, Sophie, Andrew, we weren't good enough. In the central midfield, we didn't have a defensive central midfielder who we could rely on. Didn't really have a centre-back who we could rely on. And in the end, we ended up finishing second, didn't we, on the last day of the season? Yes. But realistically, we could have won the league. We could have won it, but that's the ambition of the football club. The football club, everybody, all of us fans could see what was needed. And it's a disgrace that it's only now that gets kind of addressed. It's
But you see,
ridiculous.
I actually think that this could be that type of season. It's so topsy-turvy, and we're only in the first act of the Premier League so far this season. But Leicester capitulated last season, missed out on Champions League. They lost their form. Of course, we're dealing with COVID and Project Restart, and things affected teams in different ways, Andrew and Casey. But I feel this year, when we're kind of in a situation where it's Tottenham, it's Leicester, you've got a Liverpool that apparently Salah's just been diagnosed with COVID. Joe Gomez might be out for the season. They've lost Virgil van Dijk. Manchester City are going through a transitional phase themselves. Chelsea under Lampard seem to be finding their feet, but will they be able to,
Up and down, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very up and down. Defense is still a bit dodgy. Manchester United, the worst team we've seen so far, Andrew. Do you feel like we're in one of those seasons where, we might miss out again because of our own deficiencies?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is going to be one of those up and down seasons. You can see from the way it started that things aren't quite what people thought they were going to be in terms of who's going to be top of the table and who's going to be winning games, and teams losing games that you would never have thought. You look at what happened to Liverpool against Aston Villa, and of course what happened to us against Aston Villa. I feel like it's still very open, and we're sort of lurching between one extreme and the other in terms of how we feel about this team, because you win the cup against Chelsea and you beat Liverpool in the Community Shield, and you beat Man City on the way to winning the FA Cup, and you're encouraged by that, and I think rightly so. But the issue we seem to be having is with the so-called the teams we're expected to beat, the Villas and the Leicesters and Brighton and teams like that, where we seem to have this. We've changed the psychological block from the big teams to the other teams. It is still early days, though. I think there's a real need to just step back and maybe not panic right now, even if it's difficult. The game against Villa was very disheartening and everything else, but it is still very early in the season. There are things that we're missing from the team, and hopefully we can sort out. But I have a feeling that so much else is going to go on that there might just be a little bit of a, how would you say it? The other teams are going to give us a bit of a safety net, if you like.
Yeah.
Because of what they're going to do and the points that they're going to drop. So maybe some of the bad results that we've had won't be quite as damaging as they might have been in a normal season, if you like.
Yeah. Because the teams definitely, and top teams as well, will drop points. And as you're seeing with Liverpool, my goodness, how do you plan for all of this? The good thing, I guess, for some of these teams is that the January transfer window, the gap between the last and this next coming window isn't that great. Here's another one in terms of sacrifices. We'll move this on just a little bit here. I checked in with our good friend Matt Spiro this morning. I know, Andrew, you've spoken to Matt a couple of times this season too about Saliba, and in particular, from his talent to, overall his career moving to Arsenal. I checked in with Matt today because I continually find the situation confusing, as do many Arsenal fans. And I know that you checked in, I think was he playing an under 23 game the other night? And I wanted you to kind of give us a little perspective on what you unearthed in terms of his performance, but also in terms of the sacrifice. As much as we've improved our record at the back, we still have moments of madness, and we also have inconsistencies from so many players. Would you sacrifice a Holding or a David Luiz just to throw Saliba in there and give him a chance? But first, let us know a little bit about what you've learned of his form in this game, and then the sacrifice part.
Right. Well, I didn't see the game, but I did sort of ask people who had watched it what they thought of him. And, it was kind of a mixed bag. Some people thought he did well. Some people thought he was lucky not to get sent off because of a tackle. I think the overall perspective was that this was, this is a kid's game that he was playing in, really, this Papa John's trophy, whatever it is. And he's come from playing first team football in France at Saint-Etienne, and came to Arsenal, I suppose, with the expectation that even if he wasn't going to be a first choice, he would be involved in first team action. So it is a strange one. I can't help but think, I think it could be true that there are maybe some things going on that we don't know about, which might explain why they're reluctant to use him. And at the same time, maybe Arsenal haven't handled the situation as well as they could have. You know, they tried to loan him out. It didn't get done. Why? You know, why are you spending £28 million on a centre half you're not even willing to play for 2 years? That's a question for a club like Arsenal, you know, in terms of how we spend our money. I do think there's a really interesting thing going on with centre half, because we've brought Gabriel in and he looks good. He looks the part. He looks physical and he looks ready for the Premier League. But who partners him is the big question. You know, Louise is 33 now. Holding and Chambers, maybe there's some question marks. Socrates is not in the squad. Mustafi's going to leave at the end of the season, so you're not going to get much more out of him than you've already got anyway. Who's going to play that role? Is it going to be Saliba in a year's time? But what do we do for the rest of this season? How do you plan for that? So I have a feeling centre half is going to be something that they'll be looking at in the transfer market. As for the Saliba thing, I don't know. It's a very strange situation. All I can do is think that there's something going on behind the scenes. I don't mean to say that it's terrible or nefarious or some kind of conspiracy, but something we don't know, which explains why he's not being used. At the end of the day, he is only 19, and there are very few 19-year-old central defenders in the Premier League. You know, very few. It's a difficult position to play when you're that young.
How do you feel when you see Fofana perform for Leicester and how Brendan's brought him in and brought him on, and they were teammates at Saint Etienne, and Saliba was definitely the superior of the two players, supposedly?
I guess I don't know how to explain that, and maybe the pressure at Leicester is different. Maybe injuries. Yeah, Andrew, injuries. Fofana's only playing because of injuries, but I think that the point of it all is Brendan Rodgers has the foresight to stick him in. He's got the only way we're going to know is by sticking him in. Watching an under-23 game isn't going to tell you much for a player. For a player who has played league football at Saint Etienne and looked the part, been a top guy in France as a young defender, why wouldn't we give him a chance? Rob Holding was either going to be sold or going out on loan in the summer. Yet he comes in after injury. Mustafi comes in after injury. Saliba's been there fit, ready to go, and not even been on the bench. I just don't get it. So I'd rather see him coming in the first team and making a mistake than Mustafi coming in and making a mistake.
Yeah. And go on, Andrew.
Well, I was just going to ask, I mean, is there a danger, with a young player, if you bring him in and he is exposed, that it could damage his confidence? Is that something you would have concerns about, Kev?
Andrew, I'll be really honest with you. This is the truth. It's going to happen at some time. It really is. So you're going to find out more about the player if it goes wrong than if it goes right. Because at some stage, it's going to go wrong for a young player. Because it always does at some stage. But you don't invest £28 million or 30 million or whatever they spent for a young, talented player if you don't believe he's got the constitution, he's got the confidence, and he's got the mindset to overcome any adversity. I think he has. I want to see him. I want to see him on the pitch because I think he will add something to our game at the back. I really do.
Seems like Arteta's guy is Pablo Mari whenever he makes an appearance. I think
he plays in the same position as Gabriel. He's not getting the team out of that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a hot mess again in terms of our defense. And here's the next part of the sacrifice. And I just want to bring up Tashi's comment here to you guys. There's a huge difference in improving defensively and parking the bus. All 11 of our players are in our own box. We had to sacrifice our attacking output in order to improve defensively. Now, my next sacrifice question to you guys was exactly that. I know that we've improved defensively. We actually had the best defensive record prior to the Aston Villa game. but we have completely sacrificed, unlike Liverpool in their transition from being all out attack to shoring up their defense. We have completely lost our creative output. We're not exciting going forward. We're more boring to watch than any of George Graham's boring teams, in my opinion. So, Andrew, I'll start with you. Would you go back to letting in 3 or 4 goals? I don't want that to sound melodramatic, but would you sacrifice a little bit of that in order to have Laka and Oba scoring 3 or 4? The Emery, I'm not talking Emery ball here, but I kind of am in a little bit of
Sounds a bit like Ozzy Ardiles' Tottenham, no? That team attacked all the time and let in goals all the time. Look, I think there's no doubt that we have to shift the emphasis of our game towards the final third a bit more. You know, how we move the ball, how quickly we move the ball from midfield to attack. I don't think the balance of that front three is right. I don't think you can play Aubameyang, Lacazette and Willian in the same front three. I certainly wouldn't be playing Willian at all based on what we've seen from him so far this season. I think Lacazette could do it sitting down on the bench for a little while. He's being asked to do a specific job by Mikel Arteta, but when you get the chances that he's got in the last few weeks and you miss them, it's time to give someone else a go. For me, the starting point of this is when you look at the Arsenal squad and you look at the world-class players that we have, they're few and far between, but one of them is the captain of the club. We give him a huge new contract. He's 31 years of age. What do we want to do with him? Do we want him running up and down the left-hand side, doing his defensive work, tracking back, or do we want him in the middle where his movement will cause defenders all kinds of problems, as it has throughout his career? I think that's where we start. It's not going to fix everything because I think that you've got to get the ball to those players. You've got to get the ball to people in those positions. But I just think in terms of changing the emphasis of our attack, rather than having a Lacazette who's sitting back and dropping into midfield, when you look at his average position, it's somewhere near the center circle. Mm-hmm. Put Aubameyang in there, and his average position will be a lot higher. And even if he doesn't get the ball as much as, a player who is nominally there to link up play, what he does is his movement takes defenders with him. It pulls defenses apart. It leaves room for other players to get involved in the attack. So I don't think I think we probably do have to sacrifice something in defense. For me, it would be one player. I don't mean a specific player. I want to see us go with a back four. I'd like a back four, a midfield three, and a front three, and let's start moving the ball more quickly. And I think that would improve things.
I think, KC, you've always said that he wants to play 4-3-3, but he just doesn't have the right players right now in order to do that. Well, clearly he doesn't have the right players to also play the three and some of the other decisions that he's made. So maybe we can see this. Maybe we can see him make this change, even though he doesn't have who he wants personnel-wise right now after the international break.
Yeah, I think Mikel Arteta, what he's going to be doing right now, as I said before, he's going to be looking at all the videos because he's the one who has to find a solution. I truly believe after that Aston Villa game, he was shocked at how the team capitulated. He was. And he said, the standards ain't good enough. It's not good enough. And he won't stand for it. And he's right. We shouldn't stand for it. And he shouldn't stand for it. So will he make wholesale changes? Probably not. But he may tweak a few things. And hopefully the performance level goes up and we start scoring again. Because great that and I understand you've got to defend as a team at times. Let's not get away with that. And if Lacazette would have scored some of them chances, maybe we would have won 2 of the games and everybody wouldn't be moaning so much. But the key to all this is even in a win, you have to look at deficiencies. And even when we have won games, we haven't been convincing, let's be honest. So, I truly believe Mikel Arteta is going to earn his money over the next couple of weeks.
And to be fair to Lacazette, though, too, it's not like, last season or the season prior when we were creating so many chances in games for our forwards to score. He's got to finish 1 of 2, which isn't always easy for some strikers. So I feel like he's a little bit, yes, he's been poor, but he's also asked to do a lot of stuff off the ball, isn't he? That some fans just don't appreciate. So it's not like he's been made the scapegoat, but I think it's really easy to point the finger at him because Aubameyang isn't playing in that centre position that most Arsenal fans want to see him in. So
I mean, he did score against Leicester, and it was ruled out wrongly by VAR. And I think the other thing is that because we get so few chances, every time we miss one, it's like a dagger to the heart because we know it's not like before. You know, remember when Arsenal used to finish games if we were looking for a goal, whether it was to equalize or whether it was to get a winner, where in the last 20 minutes of a game, we would just camp in the opposition half and we would press them back to the edge of their own box, and other teams were parking the bus, and we would pepper the goal with shots. We don't do that anymore, you know. So it's a big problem, and it becomes a bigger problem then when a striker misses a big chance because we know how much it's potentially going to hurt us.
You're listening to the Highbury Squad here with myself, Super Kevin Campbell, and Andrew Mangan from Arsblog. You can check out Andrew's excellent column at arsblog.com. And of course, he's on Twitter. And the sacrifice conversation, one of the things I'd love your take on, Andrew, is Arsenal have always been able to bring up young players, give young players a chance. I think one thing we can all agree about Unai Emery is he gave a lot of young players a shot to be in the Arsenal's first team. We've seen some players get that chance, but then also kind of not be suppressed by Arteta, but definitely have to wait their turn, if you like. There's a few players I want to bring up, and then I'll just let you and KC kind of talk through them. For me, Saka, I think, is for everybody. He's the future. He's going to be part of this club for a very long time. Hopefully, if we do the right things, he will be part of this club for a very long time. A player who we all loved and fell in love with, his energy, was Martinelli. He's been injured for a while now, but Arteta never really fancied him early on when he was available for selection. We talk about Reiss Nelson, who really has only been given chances mostly in cup games. Joe Willock seems to be the most mature, perhaps, and has that Rambo-esque energy about him that could come into the first team and help with that creative shift and change. And the one for me that has been robbed completely is Maitland-Niles in that, and I don't know if we call him one of the younger players, but he's still a young player, where when we see Bellerin kind of be so inconsistent, so up and down so often. So give me your take on who you morph into the team, what your thought process is on some of these younger players, how you think Arteta sees them.
I think he does have a little bit of a lean towards experience, which you can kind of understand for an inexperienced coach, you know. But he did give a lot of these players playing time last season. Reiss Nelson, I think, is an interesting one because not only does he have Nicolas Pepe to deal with, he's got Willian now to deal with. Joe Willock is the one who really interests me. I think you're right. Saka is obviously the main guy. You know, he's such a talent and he's so mature. We were out watching those games in the US last summer, and we could see that he was ready. But I also thought Joe Willock was, you know, very much on that same trajectory. He has qualities in central midfield that nobody else in this team has. And if we're talking about players who can get forward, who can arrive in the box, he reminds me of Aaron Ramsey in a way, in terms of how often he gets in the box, the scrappy kind of goals that he scores, the willingness to keep running and not give up, and it falls for him and he gets a chance. You know, you think about the goal that he scored. Was it against Malta or Dundalk? I can't remember which game it was, but you know, he missed the chance maybe 60 seconds beforehand. And a lot of players, you know, young players let their head go down. He didn't let his head go down. He scored a cracking goal, you know.
Malta.
Yeah, the 4-1, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, he's a really interesting player. And I think if you're looking at least to the bench for somebody to come on and do something different, because a lot of the time I feel like our problems are kind of that when we make changes in games, they're like for like. You know, you think about the Villa game, and we brought on Eddie Nketiah, who plays quite regularly as well, and Nicolas Pepe for Willian and Lacazette. There was nothing different in terms of the formation or how we set up, or Leicester didn't have to think. It was just two players in the same positions that they dealt with all night. So I think when you're looking to the bench, you look for players who can come on and do something different and maybe change the structure of the team. I think Willock does that. In terms of where you can use him in midfield. You can use him sort of behind a striker, but, you know, his strength is getting forward. Reece Nelson has got tricks. I think he's somebody who could make an impact as well. And I think when Martinelli comes back, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of him. I mean, the guy has spent the last 4 or 5 months in the gym. He's bulked up. You know, he was a kid when he arrived as well. He was only 18, and he's obviously maturing physically as well. But he looks like a big guy now, you know, and maybe physically more ready for the Premier League. So I think there will be chances. And I think when senior players and experienced players, when they don't perform, unless you give young players a chance, it feels a bit like favoritism, you know, rather than giving people opportunities based on how they're playing. So I think one of the interesting things about what happened against Villa and the thoughts Mikel Arteta will have is perhaps the implementation of more young players, at least from the bench to start with.
KC, we've talked a lot about these young players, haven't we? And unlike Saliba, we've seen more of these players, and we've seen them more in competitive games as well. And, you know, Martinelli's the one that concerns me the most, because I think he and Saka were the ones that excited us the most, you know, a little while back here. And Arteta didn't fancy him. What's your take on how you morph them in? And if so, who do you morph into the first team squad, as we need a little bit of juice?
Yeah, I think Martinelli, we've got to be a bit careful, because obviously he's had a long-term injury. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon that Arteta didn't fancy him. I just think maybe he was carrying an injury. And you've got to be a little bit careful with these young players. And unfortunately, you know, he got himself a long-term injury. So, but he's definitely someone, when he's ready, when he comes back, we've got to allow him to find his feet. But he is definitely someone who excites the crowd. He's very direct. He's very quick. And he's someone who never gives up. So it's always great to see a young player who's very hungry. I think I like Joe Willock. He offers something totally different. He runs beyond the strikers or the front boys. I think that's so important for a defense to have that to worry about. You know, so they take a step back so a striker can get a little bit more room. I think that's key as well. Obviously, there's Smith Rowe's been mentioned. He had a good loan spell at Huddersfield. Yeah, you know, they were raving about Smith Rowe. I've seen him play a couple of times in the Championship. He done well, but you know,
what about this young fella, Casey?
Yeah, I'll get to Balogun.
Okay.
I'll get to Balogun. I think Smith Rowe is suffered with a little bit of injury, so I think he just needs to get himself right, and he'll be okay. We know Saka. We know what Saka brings to the table. Saka's going to be a mainstay of the team for years to come. Reece Nelson, I think can feel a little bit hard done by at times, but I still think maybe he should have gone out on loan and be playing week in, week out. And Balogun, I like the look of him, but again, I think he's in and around the first team training now, but he's not even been out on loan. He doesn't know what it takes yet. And, you know, in the under-23s is totally different than the first team. He needs to probably get out on loan, as far as I'm concerned, learn his trade a little bit, and then come back hungrier, because he knows if he goes out and scores goals, or he goes out and gains some experience, that's going to make him a better player for Arsenal in the long run.
Some great points. And we talk a lot about who's the best starting 11 based on the fact that Arteta hasn't yet built this team in his image. I say that a lot on this show, Andrew, that, you know, all of the great managers or the good managers build a team in their image, from Klopp to Pep to Antonio Conte. we've seen that along the way. Arteta definitely feels like that type of manager that wants to have that mirror image. So let's get to the sacrifices in terms of one of the most polarizing conversation among Arsenal fans, and that is Willian and Pepe. I haven't been a super fan of Pepe, but I do believe that he's earned his right to be given a chance to start in the Premier League. When you look at his partnership with Lacazette and Aubameyang last season, it may not have been as aesthetically good looking, but on paper, you could see the stats that the kid did contribute. What's your thought on Willian, Pepe? What sacrifices do you make there? What decisions do you make when we come back from the international break?
Pepe into the team for me, I think Willian has been really disappointing since he arrived from Chelsea. I know he had a really good game on the opening day of the season, but that's about it. I've been kind of unhappy with some of his work rate because he's an experienced player who's worked for managers at Chelsea who demand that you do your job up and down the pitch. And I've watched him at times this season just not do that for Arsenal, yet he's playing and starting week in, week out. I thought the decision to start him against Man City as the centre forward was really weird. So for me, I would get Pepe in. I agree with you, Sophie. I think he's imperfect. I think there are aspects to his game which are really frustrating, but once you start getting him into slightly dangerous areas, and by that I mean more central. I think when we think about Pepe, we think about this guy on the right wing standing there trying to do something with the ball with 2 or 3 defenders in front of him and it not working a lot of the time, because that's difficult. That's difficult for any player to be faced with that kind of defense to try and break down. But I thought he had a really encouraging end to last season. I thought he was great in the FA Cup final. I thought there were signs that he and Aubameyang were really beginning to build a little bit of a connection. There were a couple of goals that he set up for Aubameyang and vice versa. And then we went out and bought a player to play in his exact position, like a 32-year-old player to play in his position. So I feel like he is probably a bit demoralized in some ways. And if Willian had come in and was scoring goals and making assists, none of us could have any argument with it. But that's not the case. And we've got a 25-year-old player who's heading into the peak years of his career, who I think needs to be shown a bit more trust. And maybe after 6 or 8 or 10 performances, we might have a different opinion on all that. Maybe he won't do the business, but I would rather, in the same way that Kev was saying, he'd rather see Saliba make a mistake than Mustafi. I'd rather see Pepe try something than see Willian just pass it backwards and take the safe option. He does make things happen. He can score goals out of nothing. He can run with the ball. He can dribble. We don't have very many players who play football at pace. And he's one of them. So for me, I would have him straight in the team. And he talked about being frustrated this week. He talked about being unhappy, and he said, he took responsibility and said, look, I got to do more when I get my chances, but you got to give him the chance. You've got to give him the chance at this point, because if you want to make your attack better, sticking with the players who are making it this fudged mess that it is right now just doesn't seem the right way.
Mikel Arteta. Well, Mikel Arteta. We know Mikel Arteta. Obviously, he has to make the adjustments. He does, and whatever permutation and balance that he has to do, he has to find it, because we can't be going into the next batch of games, the first one being Leeds away, being timid. They're a team who are going to give us chances, but we've got to be quick. We can't mess around. We've got to get that ball moving, and we've got to cut through them at pace. Because if you sit back against Leeds, they are going to swarm all over us. So this is what he's got to do. He's got to find the right conundrum.
Okay, so we've got 5 more minutes here. You're listening to the Highbury Squad with Super Kevin Campbell and Andrew Mangan from Arsblog. It's been a fantastic conversation here, talking about sacrifices, what we do, what we wouldn't do. So let's let's talk about the Leeds game real quick before I let you guys go, because there's a lot of comments coming in terms of, you know, playing Saka and Pepe and playing Saka especially in that more advanced position. I think Maitland-Niles personally is someone I'd love to come in. I'd like to see Bellerin benched for a couple of games. So Andrew, I'll start with you. What would you do coming back from international break? We don't know who's going to come back injured or how players are going to be feeling. Arteta's definitely been doing his homework. There's no doubt about that. What's your take on the Leeds game and how would you approach that?
I think it's going to be a really interesting game because of the way Bielsa is kind of not a mentor, but somebody I think Arteta looks up to very much as a tactical coach in the work that he's done. So I'm a little concerned because I think he kind of overthought the Man City team selection, you know, playing against Pep, doing something he might not expect. I don't know that Bielsa is going to pay as much attention to Arteta as Pep Guardiola did that relationship there. But I would like to see us play with a back four. I'd like to see us play with a midfield three, play with a front three of Pepe, Aubameyang and Saka. Have players like Joe Willock in the squad who can come off the bench and do something different. Maybe allow the players to express themselves a little, because one of the things that we're seeing is, you know, from the sidelines with no fans, Mikel Arteta can basically, he's like an air traffic controller more than football manager. You know, he's telling the players where to go at every time. You know, you hear him shout, the ball goes that way, and he's telling somebody to go that way. And I understand that, like, you know, if you're any level of football, if you're that kind of a guy, you want to move the pieces around. But I do think he's got to let them just express themselves a bit, you know, put some faith in his pre-game work and his pre-game plans and what he does on the coaching field, and give them the plan and trust them to execute it, even if it doesn't go perfectly. So, you know, acknowledge that things aren't working, do something different with the team, be aware of who you're going to play, because Leeds are a high energy, high intensity team, and be ready for that. But remember, I think first and foremost that this is Arsenal, and that there should be some measure of aura that comes with being Arsenal Football Club. I don't feel like we play in a way which worries the opposition enough, you know. It almost is like self-defeating in a way. We're too worried about ourselves. So try and instill some of that. It's not all going to happen in one game, but just kind of a bit more attitude, a bit more pace, a bit more attacking intent, even if it comes at the expense of some of the defensive solidity, not all of it. And, you know, let's try and play the way we want to see Arsenal play. I think even if the result doesn't go our way, if people can see us trying to play in a certain way, there'll be a lot more understanding.
Andrew, I've got to ask you, do you think Mikel Arteta sends the players out not to express themselves?
I think what he sends them out to do is to play in a very structured way and to try and repeat patterns that he uses on the training ground, to get the ball into certain areas and to try and work the ball in certain ways. Do you feel like there are players playing with individual expression? I don't know that. No,
Andrew, sorry. That's not what I asked. I asked, do you think he sends them out there not to express themselves? I know there's patterns of play, but do you reckon Arteta sends them out not to express themselves? I don't think he does. I think he sends them out there with a game plan to express themselves. But a footballer's fallback mode is to just sit in the system when things are not going well. Just sit in there. Because we've seen Arsenal play better in the same system at the back end of last season. We've seen Arsenal play the system at Manchester United. I thought everyone had a good game. I thought everybody played well at Manchester United. And then the next week, they're like strangers. So it can't be the manager sending them out there not to express themselves. I think there's something up with the players sometimes. And that's why I think Mikel Arteta was so shocked on what he was seeing. Because Guys weren't even taking a chance, to hurt the opposition. They were being too safe.
Sure, I think that's kind of part of what I'm saying, is that they're being a bit too safe. That maybe what he wants from them is to create the perfect chance. We don't take enough shots. I mean, imagine playing in this team as a striker, Kev. You'd be going crazy because you're just not getting the shots.
Well, that's why Aubameyang
There'll be none
went
of
off.
this.
Well, that's why Aubameyang went off with assault, didn't he?
Yeah, and you wouldn't blame him. You wouldn't blame him.
Don't blame him at all.
I think okay, look, you're not going to tell your players to shoot from 30 yards all the time, because most of the time you just lose the ball. It doesn't work. But sometimes you just need to give it a lash, and not be afraid that your manager is going to give you a grilling. Because, certain players have shown down the years, if you take half a chance from 20, 25 yards, it could hit a leg and go in or fall for a strike or whatever it might be. So that's what I mean by expressing themselves. Just maybe take the handbrake off a little bit and let them just have a little bit more freedom on the pitch.
Andrew, I think it's the players who have the handbrake on. It's not Mikel Arteta who's got the handbrake on. I think it's the players. And he's gonna shake it up for Leeds. I could tell you that much.
What happened to that? I've asked KC this as well, Andrew. Do you remember when we played Liverpool, especially the Tierney over the top ball to Aubameyang? And I felt, and I agree with Andrew, that the handbrake was on Tierney in that Aston Villa game. It's almost like he got to a certain part on the pitch. We talked about how there were no runners, KC. There was that once they got to a certain part in the final third, there just didn't seem to be anywhere to go, not because we were being suffocated by Villa, but our own players weren't moving into the channels at all. And so that really stifled our creativity too. So that Kieran Tierney over the top ball, kind of what's happened to that? And I'm squeezing this one in before we go, but I think that's what fans want to see. And not to play the same way we do in the cup games, but to definitely allow someone like Tierney, who, I felt was told not to go too far or bomb it too much in that Villa game. I think that's what I saw.
Maybe. I think, part of the problem against Villa was we just didn't move the ball quickly enough in any area of the pitch. And there were times, I think, when Bukayo Saka made a couple of runs down that left-hand side and was looking for the ball from Tierney and it didn't arrive.
Yeah.
I think he was a little bit frustrated by it, whether it's instruction or whether it was just, lack of confidence on the day or whatever it might be. I don't know, but those avenues have been pretty fruitful for us. This under Mikel Arteta, even Tierney has been a good outlet down that left hand side. So, yeah, look, all we can do is hope that lessons have been learned from Villa, because I think as disappointing as it was not a typical Mikel Arteta Arsenal performance. It was, I think, perhaps so shocking because we haven't seen anything quite that bad for some time. So, maybe you need a bit of a slap in the face sometimes to come to your senses. So we'll see what happens against Leeds.
Well, we definitely got slapped in the face against Aston Villa, didn't we? I think we would all loved Grealish and Barkley. And let's face it, Barkley has been killed for how long now, in terms of people thought that he regressed at Everton, and here he is shining at Villa. And I think those are the differences that Arsenal fans want to see. You see Brendan Rodgers stamp his authority on Leicester, the way they're playing, the way the players have embraced the style. There seems to be a connectivity. And since the FA Cup in the league, and I don't know if there's a lot going on at Arsenal always. I mean, we've got these, behind the scenes issues. We're not going to bring up the O word, but there's a lot. And you just wonder sometimes how that affects players too. We have unfortunately come to the end of the show. I always like to give.
Sophie, can I just cut across you there? Because
you can always cut across me and bury it top right. There you go.
No, if you remember, Brendan Rodgers was getting mentioned with the Arsenal job.
Correct.
Arsenal fans said no way.
Correct.
Weren't interested. So let's not even go there. Look, what we've seen is Mikel Arteta in under a year make a difference and win a trophy. And I know it's not the biggest trophy in the world, and I know it's not the big progress that we want in the league. But do you know what it does? The key is getting the mentality in the players, being able to win and be successful. And you're beating the likes of Manchester City, who slapped us regular, and beating Chelsea, who slapped us regular. So you beat them two on the way. And again, I know it's the cup, but he's got to try and transition this team to be consistent. And you know, like when you go shopping and you see a nice table and chairs or a bit of furniture, and you think, yeah, I'll have that, and you order it, and it turns up and it's a flat pack. all of a sudden you got to put it together.
You bought it at IKEA, didn't you, Casey?
Yeah, exactly. You bought it at IKEA. You've ordered it. You're thinking, yeah, it's just going to turn up. All of a sudden, you've got to get your screwdrivers and spanners out, your Allen keys, and you've got to start putting the thing together. It's painful for us as fans because we want it like yesterday. But this thing's going to take a little bit of time. But we will improve.
How long? How many goddamn years are we going to be saying this takes time? We're going to improve in the Premier League this season. It will be a missed opportunity, and I don't know if we're going to be going into the transfer window in January for reinforcements.
We better.
I don't see it. I mean, Andrew, do you
Maybe.
see it?
Maybe.
Well, we're definitely not getting Usem Aouar, are we? That's not.
Well, you don't know. You don't know.
Doubtful.
Because
Zidane
remember,
made a call to him, told him to just.
Remember, Leon,
Mayo.
Real Madrid have got no money. Let me tell you that now. I do Spanish football every week. Real Madrid and Barcelona have got no money. So don't worry about that one. Leon are not in Europe. They're struggling in the league. You just never know.
You never know. What we gone, Andrew? Did you?
No,
you're not giving them the fingers crossed. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Andrew, is there anything you'd like to add before you leave? So you don't have any regrets tonight. And
No. I think this has been good. I was a little worried at the start when Kev was saying we might not get on. I think it's gone well in that regard.
Yeah. You can come on again, Andrew. I'd love to see you again.
Man. I appreciate it.
That was
No
great
problem.
stuff. Really good stuff. You guys, Andrew, you take care out there and stay safe. And we look forward to catching up with you
Andrew.
again during the season. And until then, Super Kev, there's only one thing to remind the Arsenal universe of, and that is...
It's always the Gunners. Come on, you Gunners. Come on.